bring the meeting of the 2021 Clean City Commission to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Chairperson Russell.
I am here.
Commissioner Bowman is excused. Commissioner Woods.
Present.
Vice Chairperson Ferry.
Here.
Commissioner Holland.
Here.
Commissioner Oberg.
Here.
Commissioner Hamilton. Absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Would you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Article 1, approval of the minutes. Everybody had a chance to read the January minutes? And if so, are there any corrections or omissions? If not, I entertain a motion to accept the minutes as written. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the
Motion made,
minutes.
seconded by Mr. Hollins. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, item 2, consideration of public comments. Those wishing to address the city, Clean City Commission need not request permission in advance. Action taken as a result of public comments will be limited to directing staff to study the matter or reschedule the matter for consideration and discussion at a later time pursuant to ARS 38-431. Do you want me to read this whole section on in-person call-ins and written comments, which is not a problem? Okay, thank you very much. And we'll go on down to item 3, reports. We have item 3A, open meeting laws.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, we have the city clerk, Annie Meredith, joining us via Zoom today. She's prepared a presentation on open meeting law and some other parliamentary procedure information. So with that, I will turn it over to Annie.
Good evening, Clean City Commissioners. Thank you so much for having me join you tonight to go over this. First thing I want to start with is I'm going to just give a general overview of the purpose of the Clean City Commission and its roles and responsibilities. So the purpose of the Clean City Commission, a Keep America Beautiful Inc. affiliate, is dedicated to improving waste handling practices in the Kingman community. The Commission shall recommend waste and environmental policies to the City Council with the desire of following a common purpose. Responsibilities include initiating, planning, directing, and coordinating programs designed to result in a sustained reduction of litter in the Kingman community, enlisting the cooperation of citizens, government, businesses, industry to this end as well, to review and make recommendations concerning the structure and enforcement of ordinances and regulations, to promote programs designed to assist and promote community beautification, to periodically measure litter control and publicize the results, and to generally strive to promote and maintain a clean community. And now I'm going to share my screen and go over the open meeting laws. Can you guys see that okay? the chambers see that, Donna?
Looks good.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right, so this is the annual open meeting law training provided by the city clerk's office. My name's Annie Meredith. I am the city clerk for the city of Kingman. So open meeting law, the general provisions are that it's the public policy of the state that meetings of public bodies be conducted openly and that notices and agendas be provided for such meetings which contain such information as reasonably necessary to inform the public of the matters to be discussed or decided. Toward this end, any person or entity charged with the interpretations of this law shall construe any provisions of this law in favor of open and public meetings. All meetings of any public body shall be public meetings, and all persons so desiring shall be permitted to attend and listen to the deliberations and proceedings. So what that means is basically the public's business must be conducted in public. Why does open meeting law matter? It protects the public and it preserves their right to participate in government. It protects the public officials and maintains integrity of government, ensures a better informed citizenry, and builds trust between the government and citizenry. Who must comply with the open meeting law? Each one of you. And you as a commission and you as individual commissioners are subject to open meeting law rules and violations if posed against you. The public body is defined as the legislature, all boards and commissions of the state or political subdivision, all standing, special, or advisory committees or subcommittees appointed by the public body. So you guys are an advisory committee that is appointed by the city council, which is the public body. This is going to include any of our quasi-judicial bodies. We have a board of adjustments, building board of appeals, etc. And then a subcommittee is any entity, however designated, that is officially established on motion and order of a public body and whose members have been appointed for the specific purpose of making a recommendation concerning decisions to be made or considered or a course of conduct to be taken or considered by the public body. And what constitutes a meeting? And we get quite a bit of questioning around this, especially with some of our commissions, and we'll get into a little bit more of that. But a meeting is considered the gathering in person or through technological devices of a quorum of the members of a public body at which they discuss, propose, or take legal action, including any deliberations by a quorum with respect to such action. Quorum is defined as a majority of the members of the board or commission, and vacant positions do not reduce the quorum requirement. So if you're a 7-member commission, any more than 4, regardless if you have a vacant position, is still considered a quorum. What constitutes a meeting? We have definitely not an exhaustive list here, but in the era we live in now where there's so many technological ways to communicate, these are some that are included: email, through a website, blogs, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, texting, and any similar technologies. Elected officials should refrain from sending emails or other electronic communications to a quorum of the members of the public body in order to avoid serial meetings, and you don't ever want to propose legal action to any members electronically. So you'll get emails from Donna or from Rob, and you'll just want to make sure that you email them back directly and don't ever use a reply all. You also want to refrain from using electronic communications to discuss with members matters that are likely to come before the public body for action. So maybe it's not currently an item that has been agendized for discussion, but it is something that the commission has considered bringing back down the road. You just want to make sure that you aren't discussing that amongst each other outside of a meeting. Splintering the quorum. A meeting can also occur when less than a quorum of the public body discusses a matter of city business and one or more members later discuss the matter with another member of the public body. So if 2 of you are at lunch and you're talking about something that is currently an actionable item for the commission, and then you leave that lunch and you go talk to a couple other members, you've now splintered the quorum. It's also come up recently about members of the public contacting commissioners about items that are on the agenda. And it's just a best practice to make sure that those discussions are happening in the meeting in front of the public body, so that everybody is a part of that discussion. And it just really provides transparency for the commission in those conversations. We have to inform the public. The meeting agenda has to be posted a minimum of 24 hours in advance. If for whatever reason we aren't able to make that deadline or a posting error may occur, then the meeting will not be able to be held. The agendas have to have notice including the date, time, and location of the meeting. Right now, you'll notice because we're doing these hybrid in-person virtual meetings, it actually says that at the top of the agenda that somebody may be attending via technological means. The agenda has to have any items that are going to be discussed, considered, or decided. So nothing can be discussed outside of that. And if an item is requiring action, it has to indicate so on the agenda. And then we need to have a summary of those items. Under each item, we need to be able to tell the public, give them just a little blurb to let them know what's going to be discussed. And then they have the opportunity to attend and get further information if they choose to do so. And any other matters must be in some reasonably way related to an item specifically on the agenda. And if it's not, you just don't discuss it. Like I said, only items specifically listed on the agenda or matters related thereto may be discussed, considered, or decided. If it's not on the agenda, it cannot be discussed. And this is, I can't reiterate this enough because this is oftentimes where commissions get into a little bit of a gray area, and you definitely want to stay out of that area. If it's not on the agenda, it can't be discussed. If somebody brings something up or has a question, the best rule of thumb is to ask that it be put on a future agenda for discussion, but to not have any dialogue in relating to it at all. And then if action is taken on an item, like a decision is made, a vote is taken, and it was not an agendized item, that action is null and void. Calls to the public. You do not have to have a call to the public on your agenda. Most of the commissions choose to have the call to the public. An open the call to the public is just an item that allows the public to bring any concerns or thoughts or things to the commission's attention. Call to the public is not a time for anything that is agendized. Those would need to wait for those specific topics to be called on. And then you can impose a reasonable time limit on the speakers for city council. We use a 3-minute timer, so we allow everybody to have 3 minutes to address the council. As a public body, when it comes to call to the public, you cannot have open dialogue. You cannot be discussing the item. You can, if they criticize a commissioner directly, that commissioner does have the opportunity to respond to that criticism. You can ask or direct staff to review the item and to bring the commission information on it. You can ask that it be put on a future agenda. You can just sit in silence and go on to the next item. And then, like I said, it's only permitted if it is specifically listed on the agenda. So the public has a right to attend open meetings. They have a right to listen, to tape record, to videotape. They do not have a right to speak unless, again, it's during that designated call to the public or during a public hearing. And then they don't have the right to disrupt. Sanctions for violation. So if a public officer knowingly violates open meeting law, the court can impose a civil penalty. The penalty can also be imposed against each person who knowingly aids, agrees to aid, or attempts in aiding of the violation of open meeting law. If a public officer knowingly violates the law with the intent to deprive the public information, the public officer may be removed from office in order to pay attorney fees. All legal action done by a public body during a meeting held in violation is null and void. So one more thing I just want to say on that, those violations are against you as an individual commissioner, and the fines that are assessed are against you individually. That is not something that the commission would cover the expense of, or the city. That would be on you as an individual. Conflicts of interest. We are a small community, and although your commission specifically doesn't necessarily hear things that you might have conflicts on, it's always good to just cover this. So it is illegal to fail to declare a conflict of interest under Arizona law, or to participate or otherwise be involved in discussion on issues or contracts where such a conflict exists. And this covers all public officers and employees of incorporated cities and towns. It also applies to private interests of public officials or employees' relatives. So if the decision that's going to be discussed is going to be bringing some type of personal financial benefit to you, a spouse, a direct family member, it's just best that you review your agenda ahead of time and advise your recording secretary of any conflicts that might exist. And then they can just excuse you from that discussion and vote. So I just went over this part. In general, it results when an officer or employee of a city or town or their relatives that is involved in a substantial ownership or salaried employment with a private corporation doing business with the city. Again, for your commission, that doesn't necessarily come into effect unless maybe you are going to buy some promotional materials and somebody on your commission was directly linked to the company you were using, and therefore they might have some kind of profit. They would just want to disclose that, for example. Any remote interests that are so minor that they do not constitute illegal conflicts of interest, it's best just to, if you think there might be one, just mention it. And if it's so far out there that it really isn't a conflict of interest, then you can go ahead and have the discussion on the item. And then these are the statutes that directly relate to open meeting laws and conflict of interest. If you have any questions on that, you could always reach out to myself in the clerk's office, or Carl Cooper or Amy over in the city attorney's office, and they're happy to answer questions too. So with that, does anybody have any questions for me right now?
No.
Any questions?
I have a couple quick questions. Sorry.
Oh, no problem.
Did you guys miss me? Okay, so I was just wondering, I just wanted you to clarify about a member of the public speaking to us. I just wondered if someone came to us and they were asking, like, discussing like the recycling program or something. I feel like just knowing what we know and having seen kind of a little bit more behind the scenes, it's easier for us to help educate the public a little bit about that. Is
For
that?
sure. So is that Commissioner Ferry?
Yes. Hi.
And I thought I recognized your voice. So that really is talking about actionable items that are on a upcoming agenda, not necessarily just community discussion about the recycling program or different things that the commission is doing in the community. It's really about making sure that any discussion on actionable items for the commission are done in the public meeting forum.
Okay. So like community outreach, education kind of stuff is okay.
Correct.
And then I just wondered, what are the best practices for the Clean City Commission to place new items on the agenda?
That comes later.
So
or what
if
do you
you're
guys
wanting
prefer?
one item
Sorry about that.
on your agenda,
Yeah.
so then there's, I don't have your agenda up. Let me see.
Like, Rob, would you prefer us emailing you and letting you know if we like something to be on the agenda? Should we talk about it at the discussion part of the meeting? What do you prefer?
Well, there is an item, generally we carry that, it's item number 6 on this agenda, but that would change if there are more items on there, but it's the announcements by commission members. And
Okay,
that would be the place to request items for future agendas.
okay,
I guess,
Correct.
just as a point of clarity, when you do that, if you could provide as much direction or specificity as you could, so we'd be able to prepare whatever material might be needed for that.
okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's all.
And Annie, I had one question, please.
Okay. I'm sorry, I cannot hear you. Can you speak into your microphone?
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Just a quick question, like, there's things that we're working with Rob with on, in a couple areas on recycling and stuff. I had made some phone calls in the last week or so and found a recycling plastic company out of Riverside, California. I actually touched base with a gentleman just to see if he'd be interested. He was very interested. I actually called Wayne, and I was wondering if something like that is okay. We're not voting on anything. I called Wayne and I said, you've been on the board longer. Here's a gentleman. Here's his phone number. Here's his name. I'm going to turn that over to you, and you can either get with Rob, and work with him on that. Is that any type of problem where if we're getting ready to do some kind of community cleanup, we can call each other and talk to each other? Where are you going to meet at? What are you going to, stuff like that. Here's a phone number for somebody.
I have two answers. Sorry, were you finished? I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay.
So the first part of that sounds to me like something that could potentially come back to the city for action. So if you have spoken with him, I would recommend that you guys don't speak with any additional commissioners, or else you're going to have splintered a quorum. As far as community cleanups and that kind of community event and outreach things, that are you going to be attending? Where do you want to meet at? That is fine, because those are not action decision items that'll be coming forth to the commission. And through the city clerk's office, we keep a pretty blanket courtesy posting is what we call it, for any community events, ribbon cuttings, and things of that nature that members of our city council or commissions might be attending as a group. To cover that, you just always want to make sure that when you're in that setting, that you're careful not to discuss any current actionable items that are coming to the agenda or are currently going through the discussion process, and just keep it to topics that are not currently under consideration.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
just to add to that, I guess if you have questions about logistics for a cleanup or something like that, if you want to contact Donna or myself or both of us, then, we can notify the commission with an email, again, with the reminder that, never hit reply all, reply to us. And, we can coordinate that stuff on our end.
And one other clarification for Sarah. Between meetings, there have been times when there's something that I wanted to get on the agenda, I'd give Rob a call and say, if there's room. I didn't know how jammed the agenda was going to be for the next meeting, so I'd just say, if there's room on the agenda, I'd like to see if we could get such and such on, and give him a little idea of why you were requesting it, and usually worked out.
Yeah, and it just depends. I mean, if
Yeah.
it's something that's going to involve a lot of research, it might not be something that we'd be able to turn around for the next meeting. But yeah, I'd encourage all of you to, contact me if you have any discussion items you'd like to talk about.
Okay, thanks. I just really wanted to clarify with you guys, because I know you're really busy, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, so if you guys are ready, I'm going to go on to the parliamentary procedures presentation. And everybody can see that one okay?
We can see it.
Perfect. All right, so what is parliamentary procedures?
Could you slow down a little bit? You're talking fast. Sometimes it's really hard to understand what you're saying.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And that might be the connection. I apologize. I might not have control over that. So what is parliamentary procedure? Parliamentary procedure is a set of rules for conduct at meetings that allows everyone to be heard and to make decisions without confusion. Why is it important? Because it's a time-tested method of conducting business at meetings and public gatherings. It can be adapted to fit the needs of any organization. And it's important that everyone knows the basic rules. So your typical meeting has an order, and you can see this on your agenda. You start with your call to order and roll call. Some commissions have the Pledge of Allegiance, approval of minutes, any awards, call to the public, and so on. A motion is the proposal that the entire membership takes action or stand on an issue. And motions are how the individual members are able to express themselves. And with motions, there's three basic types that you'll use. A main motion is to introduce items to the membership for consideration. They cannot be made when any other motion is on the floor and yield to privileged, subsidiary, or incidental motions. Subsidiary motions, the purpose is to change or affect how a main motion is handled and is voted on before a main motion. And then incidental motions, their purpose is to provide a means of questioning procedure concerning other motions and must be considered before the other motion. Most of the motions that you guys will utilize as a commission will be a main motion. And then if during the discussion it's decided that maybe a motion needs to be adjusted, then the person that made the motion would withdraw their motion, and you could propose a new motion. Only one motion can be on the floor at a time, and so you want to make sure that it's a nice, clear, concise motion, and we'll kind of get into that. The life of the motion, first somebody makes a motion, and then somebody seconds the motion. It's open for discussion, and then you have a vote. If the motion does not get a second, then the motion dies. It does not move forward to a vote. These are very formal. You can definitely use this on how motions are presented, but these are directly from Robert's rules. So you'll see that most of the commissions are not quite as formal as this. But you want to obtain the floor. So after the last speaker is finished, you'll address the chair by saying Mr. Chairman or Chair Russell in your instance right now. They'll acknowledge you and say, Commissioner Meredith, and you'll say, I'd like to make a motion that whatever the action is, or that we do not. And you just want it to be clear and concise. It is the legal action of the item, and it does have to be documented and put on record. So you definitely want to make sure it's a very clear, concise motion. You wait for somebody to second the motion. Either somebody will automatically second it, or sometimes the chair will need to call for a second. Like I mentioned before, if there is no second, your motion is lost. And then the chairman will sometimes just kind of repeat it to make sure everybody's aware of the motion that's on the floor. They'll say, we have a motion from Commissioner Meredith to approve this item. We have a second from Commissioner Owen. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, aye. Any opposed, like sign. And then they'll determine if the motion is carried or not. If you are wanting to expand on your motion, there is a time for you to speak in favor. At that time, it's during the discussion. It is not, you can, sometimes the chairperson will ask if there's any discussion before they call for a motion. If not, then after the motion is made, you do have the opportunity to discuss before the vote is taken. The person making the motion is always allowed to speak first. Any comments and debate are directed to the chairman. And you want to make sure that you keep within the time limit for speaking that has been established by your commission. And then the person that made the motion can speak again after all the others are finished, or if they're called on by the chairman. The chairman's going to ask, are you ready to vote on the question? Usually that's going to be all in favor, and then any opposed. You can say aye or no, or you can say yes. They usually give you the directive. Like I mentioned before, all those in favor say aye, any opposed, nay. They can't, there's sometimes when they'll call for a roll call vote, you might not see this as much on Clean City, but if there are items where they want to make sure that they get a very clear yes or no from people, we see this often in council, then they can ask you, the recording secretary, Donna, to do a roll call vote, which she'll call your name and you will say yes or no. And then by division, it's a slight verification of a voice vote. It does not require a count unless the chairman desires. And then members will raise their hand or stand. There are two other motions that are commonly used related to voting. So if you have an action item and the commission isn't quite ready to take a yes or no action item, you can motion to table the item. This motion is often used in the attempt to kill a motion, but it's always present to take it from the table for reconsideration by the membership. And sometimes commissions will motion to table so staff can gather them additional information or to do a little bit more fact checking or finding before they take a vote on it. And then there's the motion to postpone indefinitely. It's often used as a means of parliamentary strategy and allows opponents of a motion to test the strength without an actual vote being taken. It also opens the debate once again for the main motion. Parliamentary procedures is the best way to get things done at your meetings, but it only works if you use it properly. So you want to allow motions that are in order, have members obtain the floor properly, not speaking over each other, speak clearly and concisely, and then obey the rules of debate. Most importantly, being courteous, giving everybody their time and attention to share their views on the matter. And then with that, I am done. If there are any questions, I am happy to answer them for you.
Any questions? If you want to get really confused, get Robert's Rules of Order and read it. You get confused.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Chair Russell and the commissioners for the opportunity to do your annual training. I will see you again next year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Annie.
Thank you, Annie.
Old business. The event calendar is item A. Further discussion and possible action regarding CCC activities in 2021.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I do have a couple updates. We've been in contact with the Surbat Garden Club. They have canceled their Arbor Day event for this year. Generally, that's held at the end of April. They may be reconsidering something later in the fall, but that the event in April won't be happening. And I do have a new item. It's the management team cleanup. We try to do this a couple times a year with the city manager and the other department heads, and we've always invited the commission to participate in that. So we'll be doing that at Bashes, the lot between Bashes and Maverick, and that'll be at 8 a.m. on Thursday, March 18th. So if you could, interested in attending, please meet us there in the Bashes parking lot, and we'll spend a few hours picking up some trash, and there's usually plenty of trash for us to pick up there. So I'm not aware of any other new events added. I don't know, I guess we want to have discussion on whether we want to maintain this item on the agenda or bring it back when any new events start scheduling again later in the year. I'm not sure when that'll be, but hopefully it will be. Come fall, we'll be able to start doing some events again, but.
Hopefully, yeah. It's pretty hard to schedule anything with the way things are right now. You don't know what's going to happen from day to day practically. I say we just continue as we've been doing each month, and if there's a new item, we can get it on the calendar.
Okay, we can do that?
We don't need to make a motion or anything on that? Or do we?
No, I don't think so.
I think we've got this where we've just been rolling it over month after month
I guess I
after
probably
month.
should
Just-
pay better
yeah.
attention during the parliamentary procedure portion of the presentation. But I don't believe we need a motion on that.
I have a question on that. If it comes about that we determine there's a cleanup that we're going to do that has to do with our community cleanup thing here, helping the properties and what have you, how's that going to get on the calendar? Is it something that's going to have to go on the calendar, or
Well,
how do we
yeah, I mean,
schedule that, I guess?
yeah, well, that is another item on the agenda, so that might be next. So when we get to that, we can talk about how that would work.
Okay. Any further questions for Rob? So that's
I
March
guess-
18th. We mark our calendars for that. At what time in the morning are we going to meet?
8 a.m.
8
at
a.m.
Bashes.
Okay.
I guess I would ask, so nobody else has heard of any events starting back up? Okay. If you do, please let us know.
If anything, they're getting canceled again, it seems like. I know the fun run has been canceled again this year, so that didn't surprise me. Come early, I'll supply some donuts and a little nourishment before we start out there. Okay, move along to item B, service to community programs, update discussions, and possible action regarding the service to the community program.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, just to give I know Commissioner Ferry hasn't been last couple of meetings, but just to give a little background on what we're talking about doing. So we'd like to put together a program wherein we work with nonprofits, churches, and even our development services department. We identify properties that are in need of cleanup, possibly in violation of the city code as far as nuisance. People who don't have the financial wherewithal or maybe the physical wherewithal to clean up those properties, and we like to start assisting them with cleanups, with the commission acting in the volunteer mode, along with some city staff, and hopefully working with some other community service organizations. So we've kind of put together an outline for that, I guess, and there's some things we need to work on our end. We need to develop a waiver form that our risk management department will sign off on that will give us permission to go on to private property, because that's generally a big red flag for us, is be utilizing city resources on private property. So we'll have to work through that with our legal folks and our risk management folks. If there's a couple other things I guess I would ask for the commission's assistance with, and that's, we did have Nucor Steel reach out to us. They're interested in some community service projects, and they were interested in this project. But if commissioners have any connections with people out in the community, whether they be, companies, whether it's Unisource Electric or KRMC or, the Lions Club or the Elks Club or whoever, You know, if you could reach out to those folks and see who might be interested in participation and what kind of participation they may be interested in, I guess not just the labor for the cleanups, but you know, maybe also some assistance with, you know, materials or equipment, you know, weed whackers, PPE, water coolers, you know, other things along those lines that maybe some local businesses would be willing to help us out with, you know, whether that be a local hardware store or whoever, you know. There's just going to be a lot of coordination. We really want to kind of make this a community program and not so much just a city program. So I know you folks are out in the community a lot and you have a lot of connections. You're in other organizations and other clubs, and you know, if that's something that you could reach out and start kind of beating the weeds for us, trying to drum up some of that interest out there, maybe see what people could or would be willing to contribute to this program, I think that would be a big help for us.
Well, I know we were gonna try and expand our Adopt-A-Block program, but COVID kind of shut everything down for this 2020, and so maybe we could kind of start looking back at, like I say, community services, clubs, and or organizations to get involved in the Adopt-A-Block program.
And I think it's not just the city events that have been postponed. You know, a lot of these groups had their regular events that they would do where they have not been able to do. And, you know, it's going to take us a while to get everything into place to where, you know, we're a little bureaucracy, and that takes a little while to work through, but, you know, it's going to take us a while to work there. But if you could help us, you know, out in the public, just trying to beat the bushes and see what kind of help we could line up. You know, and like I say, the program's still kind of in flux, so it's not like we have a real solid outline. You know, we you know, there's a lot of things that, you know, we probably haven't even considered yet, you know, but yeah, that would be a big help for us.
Rob, do you have any paperwork, like a pamphlet, anything that we could, because sometimes we talk to people and it has to go through another few.
No, we can definitely, we'll come up with something like that. Maybe we'll bring that back next month for your review pamphlet. Yeah, we can do that. It's a good idea.
Rob, I have a couple comments. So I've been busy out there doing what you're asking us of right now. I met with Randy Arns Construction. He's all in. He said he doesn't want to do it every month, but he will quarterly or whatever, donate 4 or 5 guys, some equipment, stuff like that, once we get the program put together. And I told him it's you know, in the future, but wanted to get his input. He's on board. Talked with Kevin at Innovative Landscape. He's on board. Same comments from him. And then I talked with the coach of the high school for the football team, and the high school's on board also. Everybody has the concerns about the liability waiver. I told them that's in the works, that you were working with the city manager, the city attorney to get that taken care of. Also spoke with Casey at Walmart. He's the store director. He said he would be willing to pitch in some trash bags, whatever we need, you know, to an extent. Just come to me and ask. I said, okay, we sure will. Also had a meeting this morning with Dave Reif, Kingman PD, about some other stuff, and it came up. I explained to him what was going on. He said, yeah, I've heard of this program. They had something similar, I guess, years ago, and it fell apart or went by the wayside. But he said his officers, he will start having his officers bring to us, or notify us of exactly the type of people we want. An elderly person, a disabled person that just can't go out and take care of their properties and stuff. And he understands that. And he said there's a lot. In fact, he said right now they're actually doing our program through some church groups here in town. And when his officers see an elderly person or a disabled or somebody that can't take care of their property, he has 2 or 3 church groups right now that will actually go over there and clean their properties up for him. So he's on board. He's willing to get us information when the time comes. Whenever you say, we're ready to get started, and we have a handful of people so far on board.
Well, that's great. I appreciate your work. And I guess that's the other thing we can do is start building our volunteer roster.
Our volunteer base,
Yeah. Okay.
Is
Mr.
there
Chair.
a,
Oh, sorry, Wayne, go ahead.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry?
I have a comment or a question or what have you. Is there a letter or something that we could send out to different organizations to let them know that we're trying to get this program going so they have knowledge of it? Or,
Sure. That-
you know, just to introduce the program to them and
Yeah,
get the word out.
And I think Commissioner Wood's idea about a pamphlet is a great idea. I guess I would like to get down the road a little bit further to make sure
Sure.
I don't run into any dead ends and have to turn around. But yeah, I think we can start working on the pamphlet, and I'll start working through. I think it's just going to be a matter of timing. I want to make sure before we are out actively pitching this that we've got everything lined up on our end.
And that's what I'm explaining to my people. We're just throwing some
Right,
feelers
yeah,
out there.
I think
to
at
see.
now, at this point, it's just, hey, this is something that we're looking at doing, thinking about.
You know, or even getting them to adopt an area, whether it be the road or park or the block that there's church or organization on or something like that, that, hey, we can use the help with
Yeah, and
this area, can you help with this or what have you?
and there may be groups that would be more interested in staying in like the traditional adopt a block program. I think,
Right,
in my mind, this is something a little bit different in that
exactly.
you know, we're targeting some of these individual properties that are in need of help and folks aren't able to take care of it
Right.
themselves.
One thing that's always kind of bothered me, on some of these individual properties, like I say, we'll be targeting the people that are just not capable of handling the cleanup themselves due to health or age or disability, whatever. But the ones that have let their property go where it's an absolute hazard and a health problem and a total eyesore, but they won't do anything about it. Neighborhood services get in and try to do something, but it takes forever and a day to get anything done through the courts. Is there any kind of, now, the county, they can put a tax lien, but that money goes to the county and doesn't help the city's coffers to repay what it costs to clean that property up. Is there any way we could get some kind of a return on the money that it costs for the city to clean up a piece of property?
We have done that in the past, put a lien on a property. But like, as you say, the city doesn't have a primary property tax. And I know because when I first came to Kingman, I did code enforcement. So I know when I was doing them, you know, a lot of times we ended up spending more money going through that process to put a lien on somebody's property. And the odds of us getting paid back on that were very slight. But I know, you know, I don't work in that every day like I did at one time. And I know that neighborhood services, I feel they have a pretty good handle on procedures. And I know they're always looking to streamline their procedures. It's just that, you know, Arizona is a very strong property rights state, and the state legislature, you know, keeps it that way every time they're in session. So it really limits the police power of the city to enforce some of those
Some of
things.
that, yeah. On our March 18th, that's going to be sort of a citywide thing, or are we just concerned with our area that we're?
That'll be our little area.
Yeah. Okay. I was just wondering if maybe we got an article in the paper about a cleanup, if we could entice some people to come out and help clean up, you know, this stuff. Although it's not as bad as it used to be, but there's still a problem across the street from Walmart and whatnot, as far as the trash that blows over there. With the winds we've been having, you can clean up one day and it'll be a mess the next. But I think it'd be kind of neat to see if we could get people together and help out that day.
Well, I think, no, that was a previous item, but,
Mhm.
you know, I think.
Yeah, true,
that-
yeah.
That cleanup will be, you know, for this group.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right, we moved on to, sorry
The
about
community program.
Mr. Russell? I just had a couple things to say, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
So the one question is, if we have volunteers that are willing to assist with this, I know that it's premature. Should we be going out now and trying to recruit, or do you want to give us notice when we're ready to do that?
I think it's fair, you know, you can let people know that this is what we're
This
working
is
on, but we don't have everything in place yet.
Okay.
But I think as far as general volunteers for the Clean City Commission, we do have a little roster of volunteers for the Clean City Commission, and anybody can sign up for that at any time, so.
Okay, is there a contact that you recommend us giving to people, or would you rather it go through us to you?
Well, I think, you know, you could have them contact myself and Donna.
Okay, and then the next thing I just had, so networking is kind of my thing. But I was thinking with the pamphlets, what would be really helpful is if, which is a really, really great idea, because when you go to people and you ask for volunteers or donations, they don't always, I mean, it's, a lot of times people don't care if it's a nonprofit and they get the money back, but they want to see that it's a legitimate thing that we're doing. So I think if we could have some kind of letterhead that just talks about the program, one for donations, for materials and the time, and the other for just people, volunteers, just to give people information so
Sure.
they know a little more about it. So that's all I was going to say.
We'll work up those drafts, and we'll bring those back to the next meeting. And see.
Yeah, a lot of companies require that request with a letterhead. I think True Value is probably one of the few you can just walk in and say, hey, I need this when we're doing this, and they just give it to
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
I know that Walmart says that if you're a nonprofit and some of these other big corporations, you can get donations. So this may be a good thing to partner with nonprofits on to kind of get some of those different donations.
Definitely.
Chair, a question for Rob. We were talking about the trailer and stocking the trailer, so on and so forth. I was thinking the other day when I came by your office, the old style trash trucks with the hydraulic compression. If we had one of those to show up at one of the sites, instead of loading everything in the trailer and then having to go somewhere and unload it again, is it possible to have one of those trucks show up the morning of the cleanup and branches, trash bags, everything just goes in and it gets crushed and we're done. When the day's over, we're done.
Definitely, I think, you know, we've always envisioned the role for our solid waste crew here, so I think we could definitely accommodate something like that.
I drove around the back to see what was sitting out there. Okay, good, thank you.
Glenn's always looking for things to do. So.
Chairman, I have another comment on that. I know, basically, I'm more familiar with the county than the city, and for the cleaning up the property, we get a lot of, on the abatement program, I don't know if we got a certain amount that the city spends on abatements every year, but I know the county has a little bit of money that they spend on that, and trying to work to help those do that so they don't have to put a lien on the property, because if you hire Old Trails to go out there and clean up the property, it's gonna cost thousands of dollars, and that when, like I say, I'm perfectly willing to go out and do it, but because of the liability and all this other stuff, it's more difficult to be able to do that unless I want to become a company and bid on the job or something like that. So I'm not sure how the city is on that. But I know with my organization, which is me basically, if somebody, like she was saying, they got a trash property, they don't want to have anybody come on there or whatever, but I get a lot of calls that need help, and I just go out and do it and spend my money or the cactus cleaner money on it and don't even worry about it because I have permission for them to do that. But otherwise, we need to coordinate all the people with the city and the neighborhood services and code enforcement, whoever, so everything is legal and we don't get into a bind trying to do something good, so.
Anything further?
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
So on this program specifically, the city will be picking up the tab for disposal of everything,
Yes.
and of course donations and that, but ultimately it'll be the city
Yes.
at first.
Yes.
Just for Commissioner Oberg's benefit, here a couple of years ago, we had a service where we basically rented the fairgrounds, took over the fairgrounds, and we'd have free cleanup days where people could come from all over. There was a whole area cleanup and bring their trash and dump it free. And they'd have 3 compactors and 3 or 4 huge dumpsters and a bin for electronics and appliances and tires. And it was great for the community, but it was just not cost effective, unfortunately. They were running back and forth, dumping the dumpsters and all. It just was costing way too much money. But we sure had a lot of activity. Okay, if there's nothing else, we can move on to new business.
Let me add one more quick thing on that.
One more quick thing.
With my meeting with Dave this morning, he said there was also a program at one point where we had people capable of cleaning up their yard, but they just didn't have the financial means. So we would actually deliver a dumpster to their yard, and they would start throwing stuff in and cleaning up their own yard, but we would supply the dumpster as to help out as a community. However, he said we had a problem with hazardous waste being thrown into it. But that may be something we may want to put on a future agenda to maybe look at that program again.
Well, and there were a few issues with that program.
More issues
And
than
part of that was, the too many refrigerators, come back in the morning and it's full of refrigerators. But part of it was also, it turned into a real arson spree.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing those where we would pick a neighborhood and we'd go out and drop, 3 or 4 big containers out over the weekend. And we had a pretty significant arson spree that happened during that time period, and those were the main targets. So there were quite, just the unsupervised nature of that is something we just couldn't work through. So.
Yeah, I know the couple of times that I've rented one of those, the whole neighborhood cleaned their place up, and I was the one paying for it. Okay, anything else?
Are we gonna carry this forward to the next agenda or?
Yes,
this
sir.
item?
We'll keep this on the agenda, and hopefully we'll have some documents for you to review. Right, Glenn? Yes, sir. All right.
Still with the old business. I forgot here we had item C, election of officers. Discussion and possible action to re-elect the 2021 Clean City Commission chairperson and vice chairperson. I know that Sarah Ferry expressed an interest in being chairman, and Wayne Hollins expressed interest in being chairman.
I think
anybody-
Wayne would make a wonderful chairman.
Thank you. Any discussion? Anybody have any?
Can we get some comments? Excuse me, Chair. Can we get comments from you, Sarah and Wayne? And how long you been, like for us, how long you been on the board? Is that okay? We discuss that?
Do you mind if I go ahead? I think that I am going to withdraw that if that's okay with you all, I'm really busy with my business, as you guys have seen lately. But I'm just really happy to be reappointed to the Clean City Commission. And so Wayne is very passionate about this. And so that's all I have to say about that.
Can I make a motion? Chair?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes. Go ahead.
I make a motion that we elect Wayne Hollins as the new chair. And second, one motion at a time, right?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded that we appoint Wayne Hollins as the new chairman for the Clean City Commission. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? There's nobody on that. Motion carried.
Chair, I make another motion.
You can make another motion.
Another motion that Sarah Ferry stays on as vice chair, and that's my motion.
I'll second that motion. Is there any motions been made and seconded that Sarah Ferry's, would you be willing, first off, would you be willing to stay on as vice chair?
Was there anybody else that was interested?
I'm sorry?
Okay, I'll accept, thanks.
You'll accept the nomination? All right, motion's been made and seconded that we reappoint Commissioner Ferry as vice chair. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Congratulations. I'm off the hook. Okay, continuing on. Item 5, new business, composting and waste and food waste. Discussion and possible action regarding composting and food waste in Kingman. Wayne Hollis, I'll let you fly with that one.
Yes, I would just want an update on the composting. I know we had started that at the time, and I hear we had a fire or something with the composting or something, and so I don't know if that stopped the program or...
Okay, I can give you a little update on that. So several years ago, we started composting biosolids out at the wastewater treatment plants. And I think a year or two ago, Assistant Public Works Director Keelan Yarborough was here to give a presentation on kind of how that process worked. But essentially, at the end of the line at the treatment plant, we've got what are called biosolids. In some places, it's called sludge. So we used to transport all of that to the landfill and spend, back in that day, probably spend $70,000 a year in tipping fees out at the landfill to dispose of that. So we had some pretty sharp wastewater operators came up with an idea. It's actually been done for a long time in different places. I think probably one of the most famous was in Milwaukee, but I know Orange County does it on a real large scale too. But you can compost these biosolids by adding a carbon source. In our case, we get all the green waste that the Parks Department generates from all their tree trimming. We also accept green waste from the larger landscape companies in town. We were accepting green waste from the general public, but again, anything that's not supervised, we were getting car batteries and all kinds of other stuff out there too. So as it stands right now, we don't. And it takes a lot of effort. So you go through, and there's a chemical process you can go through, and it requires permitting through the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. A lot of additional sampling, but again, it's saving us a pretty significant amount of money. And then in the end, we end up with this Class A fertilizer product that our Parks Department is able to utilize on our parks and in our golf courses, or golf course. And so we did have a fire. We had accumulated, we kind of got in the pattern of where we would accumulate a large pile and then we'd have to bring in what's called a tub grinder, which is like an industrial wood chipper. You know, and that's a pretty significant cost, and chip all that down, and that's one scary looking machine, you know, but, so anyway, last year, we had a fire out there, and some of it, we believe, was linked to, that was when we were still allowing other people to take things out there, and I think we got a hot load out there of I'm not sure what, but, and it wasn't a massive blaze, it was more of a smoldering nuisance for a month or so. But we were able to deal with that eventually, you know, spread out the pile and get that taken care of. And we continue to compost our biosolids. The issue we have now is that we're making more than we can use. So we are going to look into other options. You know, there are, like I say, there are other places that actually bag and sell it.
Mhm.
But that's a whole different type of permitting than we do. We basically do one permit that says that City of Kingman Parks will utilize this, and we list all the facilities that they utilize it at. How that permitting process works, if we were to just start bagging it and, you know, work out a deal with Home Depot or True Value to sell it for us, I don't know that that's been done in Arizona, but that's something that we need to look into, because as it is right now, we got a lot more product than we do use for it. And it's still a net benefit, because we're not transporting it to landfill and paying tipping fees for it, but we got a pretty substantial pile out there. So that's kind of where we're at now. So I think throughout this year, we'll kind of look in what other options we've got as far as trying to find other uses for it. So
Yeah.
I gotta breathe, so I'll try not to breathe too hard on anybody. I'm not used to doing this much talking at one time, so.
I have a comment on, I know where I'm from in Washington State, they process the biosolids and compost it and resell it to the consumers and stuff like that, so I'm familiar with that, and I know with the permitting process, you gotta have a different process so you can sell it to the consumers and stuff like that. What about if you grind it up and you just have wood chips, can you sell that, give it away, whatever it takes to dispose of it, so you don't have to have too much of it on hand? Is that a problem with ADUQ of doing just plain wood chips?
Well, just plain wood chips. Well, I mean, you know, that's what we utilize. The wood is the carbon source that we
Right.
use to compost the biosolids. And so it's convenient for like the big landscapers to, you know, to Asplund or Innovative or whoever to be able to dump that material, and either, you know, they've already ground it up or we do. Yeah, it's the same with it's the same on the permitting side, I think. You know, once it becomes compost, it becomes, you know, Class A compost. But since it still has that biosolid content, it still requires that permitting process, just like we were taking raw biosolids and disposing of it somewhere else.
So you can't do just plain wood chips and use that and sell that or give it to the consumers with just wood chips without the biosolids and being composted?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that there'd be, I mean, we take the green matter because we've got a use for it.
Right.
It helps us, you know,
Sure.
get those biosolids to where we don't have to
Sure.
haul it to landfill.
I mean, if
I
we
don't
have
know that-
excess,
Well, yeah, I think at certain times there are excess. I don't know that, I don't know, that's something we could look into. I just don't know that there's a market for us to let people drop stuff off, you know, spend staff time and equipment to grind it up and then try to resell it. I don't know that we'd cover our cost, I guess.
There's a lot of need for it, whether people know how to use it and they'll actually use it. That's the problem, and that becomes an educational thing out there. I know for myself, I'm doing permaculture stuff, so I'm looking at all these ways to use that stuff, and I'm trying to cover my whole property with wood chip, hay, whatever organic material I can get on that property to improve the soil. We need that because it'll help the water infiltration on wherever it's put, and we won't be losing all that water because it'll allow the soil to infiltrate the water. So we need to educate the people that it's there and it's good for it, because everybody scrapes all their land, there ain't a living thing on there, and then wonder why it's hot and wonder why they have no water. Well, that's probably
Yeah.
a good reason.
I really don't know. I mean, that's something we could look into. I guess I would think that if there was a market for wood chips, that, a big outfit like Asplund wouldn't be giving them to us. I don't know.
I know when I go down and buy compost, it's like $40 a yard. So that's a pretty substantial amount of money that you could make over the year if you could sell it, permitted to sell it and stuff.
Yeah.
I do know, we had a meeting with the county about illegal dumping, and the operator of the dump was there, and he's wanting to get a tub grinder out there and grind, because he don't want to put that stuff in the landfill. If anything, he could use it as an alternate daily cover for the landfill, instead of just covering it up and burying it and not getting really any use for it. So they've talked about that, how long it'll take the county to do something like that. I don't have much faith in seeing that, but at least they talked about it, so that's a good one for them. So that may be a way that the consumers can get rid of that stuff, and I like to have all the wood chips I can find, but.
Mr. Hollins, can I just wanted to say a couple things about this. I was excited to see this on the agenda. I have been following the meetings, even though I haven't been here, so I'm also excited about the community program. But as far as the composting goes, I went to all of the composting workshops when we went to the waste management conference. So that's something that I'm really interested in as well. And with the tipping fees, it just seems like it makes sense for our community to, as individuals, to start thinking about how we can compost, our tree trimmings, our food, our paper products, all these things that we throw away, and then we have to pay the tipping fees for. But one thing that was really informative to me, I thought, that makes so much sense. Let's do it on the municipal level, like today or yesterday. And one thing they really encouraged was, before you go to the municipal level and start doing the composting, to have an army of backyard composters. Because all the problems that we see with recycling and contamination, you have with composting as well. And so I would love to see how, I know that we rolled back some of the education stuff because with everything going on with COVID, I would love to see how we can maybe partner with, now I don't know how this works with the city as far as partnering with different nonprofits, but to have volunteers that look at the community outreach around sustainability and waste management. Because without being in a rural community and not having as much access to recycling, we really need to start educating the community about more of the minimal waste kind of stuff. And everybody could be composting in their own backyard, and this would save us so much money in tipping fees, just to have all those, where it's relatively easy for us to compost in our backyard, it becomes a big thing for the city but it's kind of thinking ahead, you know, to educate all these people on how to do it. So that when we go as the city to these people and say, we're gonna start collecting your compostable material, they're gonna be educated and we're gonna be more successful. So I guess my interest in this would be, how can we build a community education, community outreach program so that people can take it into their own hands, you know, because it does benefit the city.
If I could respond to that, Mr. Chairman?
Pardon me?
If I could respond to
Go
that.
right ahead.
I seem to recall that the U of A Extension Office had some kind of composting. I seem to remember them sponsoring workshops where they were teaching some of the backyard composting things that you're talking about. So I don't know if that'd be something that, you know,
I think that's a heck of a
commission
good
member would want to
idea.
reach out to the extension office and see what, you know, information they had, and maybe that's something we can bring back. I think, you know, on our end, I think you're right. I think a lot of the things that we look at doing at a municipal level are better off being started at an individual level, you know, community member level. And so I think if there was some information on promoting, you know, backyard composting, I think the commission could have a role as far as, you know, utilizing our Facebook page, producing, you know, we could have, city could produce an informational video or something along those lines, but I know those folks at the extension office know a lot more about it than I do. And, you know, if they've got a program in place, or if they got a program that they had on the shelf, maybe that's something we could look at, you know, helping them.
I think
bring
they
to the
actually
fore.
have plans on how to build your own tumbler. Probably they average about 3.5 feet in diameter, and then you build your tumbler, and then they have all of the instructions as to what to put in it to help decompose yard trimmings and whatnot. And it's a real save yourself a lot of money that way. And they got all kinds of information down here at the extension.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment.
One comment?
I see all this wasted resources that we have, not only in the city, but the county, for the tree limbs, and we find a lot of green debris dumped in the desert, which it doesn't belong. And a lot of it's not just the county dumped it on the county, it's the city dumped it on the county too. So everybody's involved in it. And it's not that it's bad for nature, because it gives the animals a place to reside, you know, and hide and protect them when they're being chased and all that other kind of stuff. But it doesn't belong there. And we have a lot of trees and stuff here in the city that we don't have in the county, but all those resources are just being tossed away, and nobody's getting any use of them. And you can do a certain amount of composting and that type of stuff in your backyard, but there's an overabundance because people don't know what to do with it. You know, they like the leaves. They're called leaves because you're supposed to leave them there. So if you did that, we wouldn't have that much problem taking that stuff to the dump and wasting it. Chop and drop, you know, instead of putting it in a bag and carrying it to the dump, chop and drop and leave it there. It'll build the soil. But people don't want to know that. And I've been going to the Big Sandy Conservation District. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what we're conserving, because I don't see anything. They talk about it. They have, where I come from, we have a conservation district. They teach the classes and make the worm bins and the rain barrels and go out to the farms and what have you and teach the people. But they get a little bit more money. falls back to money. They don't, here we get 13,000, they probably get 100,000 up there. But all that money goes to producers who have commercial operations, so it doesn't come down to the consumer. And it's like talking to the county on just about anything. Oh, we're looking at the big picture. There's 200,000 of us pixels out here that make up that big picture. So it's not the city's responsibility, it's not the county's responsibility, it's our responsibility too to do the right thing. And the city and the county can help us do those things and educate, because they have the more resources, probably not enough, but we do need education. That's the biggest thing there is. And you go out here and look at all the new projects going on out here, buildings. They scrape everything off the land and just defeats the purpose of having vegetation.
Mr. Hollins, maybe we could, look more into this with the U of A and groups like you and see, because maybe if we're not, asking the city to do the work, but maybe could help with the promoting, the city has a lot more outreach in that way, and so maybe being able to get the word out. So maybe, it is an education thing, and it is letting people know in our community, So,
No, I see that as a good role, and I think, like I say, I wouldn't want to step in and try to take over on a project that somebody else knows a lot more about. So, if like I say, if any of the commissioners want to reach out to the U of A and get whatever materials they have and give that to us, we can continue or carry this item on and maybe work with them to publicize the resources that are out there for people who are interested.
someone told me one time, I can't remember where I saw it, but it really stuck with me, and it said, if you do something for people, they become critics. And I think this is something that, cities struggle with a lot. You do something for people, they become critics. You do something with people, and they become participants. And so I think that's why this whole idea of teaming up with organizations that are doing this would be really good for us.
Yeah, I don't think it's one entity that can do all the education and do all the things. It's got to be several doing similar things and educating more people, because it's just like putting something in the newspaper. Well, if that's the only way you advertise it, there's only very few that's going to get that information. So you got to have different avenues to teach that and to show it. So, and I got to go down to the extension agency because I'm also working on some permaculture stuff that's going to have the information and the classes, and I would obviously be willing to impart any knowledge that I happen to have, which is very little. Probably put it all on a thimble and have room for a cup of coffee, but it's I just want to do something.
I think that's an item, if we can get some information that we could put on display. If we have the street fair again this year, where we bring out all of the public works equipment and set up our booth, that would be something that might interest people. There's a world of information out there on the internet as far as the home compacting and composting businesses, and you can get all the information you need on how to do it, as well as, like Rob says, the university extension down here. So I think this is something, again, we need to keep on our agenda, that we can talk about as from month to month, and who knows what progress we can make. One little aside on this, years ago, a little city in south of San Francisco, it was about the same size as Kingman, they were doing taking the sludge and drying it. They had big drums that looked like photo dryers that they would run this sludge up a conveyor belt, and it'd run around this big drum and dry it. And they let the public come in and get it for nothing. They would come in and shovel this stuff into bags and take it home, and it was great fertilizer, and they were using it in their parks and whatnot. But like I say, it was building up faster than they could get rid of it. And then a liability thing came in because the people were shoveling, and the dust would blow, and they were breathing this dust from sewerage. Basically, it was treated, but it was still dust from sewerage. And so then they did something, but people they raised wonderful tomatoes, because tomato seeds don't decompose, and so they would use this fertilizer in their gardens, and the next thing they knew, tomatoes were growing like crazy. But they did something to prevent that, and they marketed this stuff under the brand name of Milorganite, and you can still buy Milorganite, and it's the sludge from the sewer departments. But it became, I guess, I don't know whether they still do it. I'm sure they do, because they're still using it in places like Golden Gate Park and all over the San Francisco Bay Area. But it's not cheap. It costs money. So I think, well, like Commissioner Ferry says, start at the home and see if we could get people to do their own composting and making tan bark, who knows? So, anything else? Any further comments? All right. Move along to item number 6. Announcement by commission members, limited to announcements, availability, attendance at conferences and seminars, requests for agenda items for the future meetings. Commissioner Ferry, do you have anything?
I do, thank you. I just wanted to let you know, one of the groups that is doing our Adopt a Block, Adopt a Park, Adopt a Trail, Kingman Main Street, I volunteer on that organization. We adopted the White Cliffs Wagon Wheel Trail, and we're doing a cleanup this Saturday at 10 a.m. if anybody would like to volunteer at Wagon Wheel Trail. And then another thing I just wanted to mention was that someone told me recently that if you call Walmart and let them know that the bags are really starting to collect across the street, they'll send employees over to clean up. So I don't know how true that is, but I think we could all try it. That's all I got.
Commissioner Woods.
So we touched on Adopt a Block earlier tonight, and I was just wondering, could we get a list or a current list of who's on that and what areas it's covered and what's available? I've talked to a few folks, and a lot of them are very ignorant, like I was, that there was even a program. And so I'd like to have a little bit more information. I don't know, is that something I need to put on a future agenda, or is it just something, oh, okay, I need to put, so I'd like to put that on the next meeting if possible, just to have that list. If not, it can roll to the next one too, just on the list. That work? And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hollins.
I will be attending the next meeting remotely because I'm going to go play in the dirt down in Stanton looking. We have a detector outing, so I'll be detecting, but I will leave there and go to a place I'll have telephone communication, which is a few miles away, but I'll be by telephone next time.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Olberg. And I have nothing this meeting either. So with that, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Motion's been made to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
I'll second. I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you all.